The silence at the table felt heavier than the roasted chickens sitting untouched on my plate. He's a complete failure in everything, in bed and at work. Jasmine's voice cut through the dining room like a hacksaw through bone. My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. Around us, her family froze. Her mother's wine glass suspended in air, her father's jaw slack, her sister Monica's eyes wide as saucers. I should have felt something. Rage, maybe. Humiliation. Definitely. Instead, I felt nothing but a strange, distant curiosity, like I was watching this happen to someone else on a television screen. "I won't argue with that," I said quietly, setting down my fork. The words came out smooth as butter. I even managed a small smile. Jasmine's face went from flushed with anger to pale with confusion in the span of 2 seconds. She'd expected tears, maybe, shouting, something to justify her cruelty. Monica laughed, a sharp, unexpected sound. "Jesus, Jasmine. If you divorce him, I'll take him. He's probably better than my ex-husband, and definitely more handsome." She wasn't joking. Monica's eyes held something I recognized now, something I'd been too blind to see before. Pity mixed with interest. "Monica, that's inappropriate," Jasmine's mother started. I stood up, pushing my chair back with a soft scrape against hardwood. "Excuse me." "Kyle, sit down." Jasmine's voice had that edge to it, the one she used when giving orders disguised as requests. I walked toward the front door, grabbing my jacket from the hook. Behind me, Jasmine's voice rose to a shriek. "Where the hell do you think you're going? We're not done here." "Yes," I said, opening the door to the cool September evening. "We are." The shouting started before I even reached my car. Jasmine's voice, her mother's, Monica saying something I couldn't quite make out. I climbed into my Ford Focus, started the engine, and drove away from the house where I'd spent the last 4 Sunday dinners, watching my marriage dissolve in real time. The streets of Millbrook passed by in a blur of streetlights and familiar storefronts. Murphy's Pub on the corner of Main and 5th. The CVS where Jasmine bought her expensive face creams. The park where we'd gotten engaged 4 years ago, back when I still believed in forever. I drove for 20 minutes with no destination in mind. Just moving, just breathing, just existing in the space between who I'd been and who I was about to become. It had started 3 months earlier, in June, when Jasmine bought a new phone. The old one was glitching, she'd explained, setting up the iPhone at the kitchen table while I paid bills on my laptop. "Your old phone was only 8 months old." Well, it was a piece of shit. She didn't look up, her fingers flying across the screen, setting passwords and downloading apps. I didn't think much of it then. Jasmine worked in advertising at Morrison & Dale, a small agency downtown that serviced local businesses and the occasional regional client. She needed to stay connected, she always said. Her phone was her lifeline. But then came the late nights, the Tuesday evening meetings that ran until 10, the weekend conferences in Lancaster, 3 hours away, that she attended alone, the smell of cologne, not mine, that lingered on her blazer when she came home. I'm an accountant. I notice patterns, discrepancies, the small details that don't add up when you really look at the numbers. The numbers in my marriage weren't adding up. It was a Thursday in July when I first heard the name. I'd come home early from Anderson & Partners, the accounting firm where I'd worked for 6 years, because of a migraine that felt like someone was driving railroad spikes through my skull. Jasmine's car was in the driveway. I found her in our bedroom, pacing and talking on her phone. "Hubert, I can't keep doing this," she said, her voice low and urgent. "He's starting to—" She saw me in the doorway and her face went white. "I'll call you back," she said quickly, ending the call. "Who's Hubert?" I asked. "A client." Too fast, too defensive. "Why are you home?" "Migraine. Who's Hubert?" "I just told you. A client. Morrison & Dale is handling his company's rebranding. God, Kyle, why are you interrogating me?" She pushed past me, her phone clutched in her hand like a talisman. I heard her footsteps on the stairs, then the sound of the TV turning on in the living room. I stood in our bedroom, looking at the unmade bed, and felt something cold settle into my chest, something that felt like certainty. That night, lying in bed while Jasmine scrolled through her phone beside me, I thought about the man I'd been when we got married, optimistic, trusting, maybe a little naive. I'd believed in the fairy tale, meet someone, fall in love, build a life together. I'd believed in a lot of things back then. I'm not a private investigator. I'm not some tech genius who can hack phones or track GPS signals. I'm just a guy who's good with spreadsheets and has a lot of free time since his wife stopped coming home before midnight. But I am observant, and I know my town. Millbrook isn't tiny. We've got about 15,000 people, but it's small enough that everyone knows everyone's business. The accountant at Anderson & Partners knows the lawyer at Preston & Sons who knows the real estate agent who sold houses to half the town. It's a web of connections, and I'd been part of it for years without really thinking about it. I started paying attention. At the monthly Chamber of Commerce mixer in early August, I ran into Dave Morrison, Jasmine's boss. He was 3 whiskeys deep and feeling chatty. "How's Jasmine doing with the Fletcher account?" I asked casually. Dave frowned. "Fletcher? We don't have a Fletcher." "Sorry, I must have misheard. She mentioned something about a difficult client." "Oh, probably the Sanderson campaign. That's been a nightmare. Cheap bastards want champagne on a beer budget." He took another sip of whiskey, loosening his tie. "Your wife's good at her job, though, when she's actually in the office." "What do you mean?" Nothing. Just, lots of outside meetings lately, client lunches, networking events. Part of the job, I guess." But his tone suggested he didn't quite believe it either. No mention of Hubert. No rebranding project. I filed that away. The following week, I was at Murphy's pub having lunch when I saw them. Jasmine and a man I didn't recognize sitting in a corner booth. His hand was on hers across the table. They weren't looking at menus or business proposals. They were looking at each other the way Jasmine and I used to look at each other, back when she still bothered to pretend. He was tall, well-dressed, probably mid-30s, dark hair, expensive watch, the kind of smile that probably worked on a lot of women. I watched them for 5 minutes before Jasmine leaned in and kissed him. Not a friendly peck. A real kiss. The kind that said this wasn't the first time. I sat there with my half-eaten burger going cold on my plate, watching my wife kiss another man, and felt absolutely nothing. No anger. No sadness. Just a weird, detached observation. So that's what betrayal looks like in real time. The bartender, a guy named Jimmy who'd gone to high school with me, came over. "You okay, Kyle?" "Fine," I said, not taking my eyes off the booth in the corner. Jimmy followed my gaze. "Ah, shit, that's Jasmine, right?" "Yeah." "Man, I'm sorry. Want me to kick them out?" "No. They'll leave on their own eventually." And they did. 15 minutes later, they got up, Hubert's hand on the small of Jasmine's back, guiding her toward the door. They were laughing about something. She looked happier than I'd seen her in months. I left before they noticed me, paid my tab, and walked back to the office. My hands were shaking. Not from anger, not yet. From something else. Confirmation, perhaps. Or the loss of hope. That night, Jasmine came home at 11:30. "Working late?" I asked from the couch, where I'd been pretending to watch television for 3 hours. "You know how it is." She kicked off her heels, not meeting my eyes. "Crazy deadline." "Right." She paused at the bottom of the stairs. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing, just agreeing with you. You've been weird lately, Kyle." "Have I?" She studied me for a long moment, then shook her head and went upstairs. I heard the shower turn on. Washing away evidence, I thought. Or maybe just washing away guilt. I pulled out my phone and opened a note-taking app. Started documenting everything. Dates, times, behaviors. The lies I could prove and the ones I suspected. If this ended in divorce, when this ended in divorce, I wanted records. Josie Brennan worked at the town hall, processing permits and maintaining records. We'd gone to high school together, and she owed me a favor from when I'd helped her brother with his business taxes 2 years ago. "I need you to look something up for me," I said, meeting her at the coffee shop on Main Street 2 days after the Murphys' pub sighting. "Kyle, I can't just—" "It's important, Josie." She sighed, stirring her latte with a wooden stick. "What do you need?" "Hubert. First name only. Someone who's probably done business in Millbrook in the last year or so." Josie pulled out her phone, tapped a few times, frowned at the screen. "Hubert Langley. Registered an LLC here in March. Langley Consulting Group. Does financial advising for small businesses." Financial advising, of course. He probably met Jasmine through work, some networking event or business lunch, the overlap between our worlds. "What else?" "Kyle. Please." She sighed again, scrolled through more information. "Divorced. One kid who lives with his ex-wife in Pittsburgh. Lives over on Elmhurst Avenue in the new development, that fancy neighborhood with the brick mailboxes. He's 41. That's all I've got." "Thank you. Are you okay?" I smiled at her, the same empty smile I'd given Jasmine's family at that dinner. "I'm perfect." I wasn't perfect. I was falling apart. But I was falling apart quietly, methodically, the way an accountant should, with planning, with purpose. Over the next week, I learned everything I could about Hubert Langley. I checked his business website, professional but generic, full of stock photos and vague promises about maximizing growth potential. I looked up his LinkedIn profile, 42 connections, mostly local business owners, a degree from a middling state school. I asked around, carefully, casually. Thinking about hiring a financial consultant, I mentioned to Tom Peters at First National Bank during a chance encounter at the gas station. "You know anyone good?" Tom made a face. "Not Langley, if that's who you're thinking. Guy came in here asking for a business loan extension. His books were a mess. Inflated projections, questionable expenses. We turned him down." At the Rotary Club meeting the following Tuesday, I learned more. Hubert was there, giving a presentation about retirement planning for small business owners. He was smooth, I'll give him that. Confident. Made eye contact with everyone in the room. When he laughed at his own jokes, he threw his head back like he didn't have a care in the world. After the meeting, I approached him. "Good presentation," I said, extending my hand. "Thanks, man. Kyle, right? You're with Anderson and Partners?" He had a firm handshake, expensive cologne, the same one I'd smelled on Jasmine's blazer, the kind of perfect teeth that come from good genetics and better orthodontia. "That's right. Been there 6 years. You know, I've been hearing a lot about your work around town." His smile widened. "All good things, I hope." "Mostly, though I did hear the Harrison deal fell through. That must have been tough." The smile faltered for just a second. The Harrison deal had been his biggest potential client, a manufacturing company that needed help restructuring their finances. It had fallen apart in August when they'd discovered Hubert had inflated his credentials. "Where'd you hear that?" "Small town." I shrugged. "You know how it is. Hey, we should grab coffee sometime. Always good to network." "Sure, yeah. I'll give you a call." He wouldn't call, but that was fine. I'd planted the seed. Kyle Bristol knows things. Kyle Bristol pays attention. Kyle Bristol might be someone to worry about. Through August and into September, I watched my marriage die in slow motion. Jasmine stopped pretending to want to spend time with me, stopped asking about my day, stopped initiating any kind of physical contact. We existed in the same house like roommates who barely tolerated each other. "I'm going out," she'd say, grabbing her purse. "Where?" "Does it matter?" And she'd be gone, sometimes for hours, sometimes until past midnight. I stopped asking where she went. I already knew. At work, I threw myself into my projects. Anderson and Partners was in the middle of tax season preparation. Small businesses needed quarterly reviews. I volunteered for everything, took on extra clients, stayed late at the office. "Kyle, you need to take a break," My boss, Gerald Anderson, told me one afternoon. You've been here every night this week until 10. Just trying to stay on top of things. On top of things? Or avoiding going home? I looked up at him. Gerald was 63, twice divorced, with the kind of weathered face that came from learning hard lessons. That obvious? I asked. I've been where you are, son. Twice. My advice? Get a good lawyer and protect your assets, and don't wait too long. By mid-September, I could feel the shift in how people treated me. The sympathetic looks, the awkward silences when I walked into places, the carefully worded questions from old friends. How are things at home, Kyle? Everything okay with you and Jasmine? If you ever need to talk. Everyone knew, or suspected. The only person who didn't seem to realize the whole town was watching was Jasmine herself. The family dinner happened on September 21st, a Sunday evening at Jasmine's parents' house in the nicer part of Millbrook. I'd been dreading it for days, but I went anyway because Jasmine had insisted, and I was still pretending to try. Her parents, Richard and Ellen, were good people, traditional. Richard had been a high school principal before retiring. Ellen had been a librarian. They believed in church on Sundays and family dinners and maintaining appearances. Monica answered the door when we arrived. Hey, Kyle, Jazz. Monica. Jasmine breezed past her sister without a real greeting. Monica gave me a look that said she knew something was wrong. I just shrugged and followed Jasmine inside. Dinner was tense from the start. Richard asked about work. Jasmine gave vague, dismissive answers. Ellen asked if we'd thought about having children yet. Jasmine laughed, sharp and bitter. No, Mom, we haven't. Well, you're not getting any younger, dear. 32 is when fertility starts to decline. I'm aware, Mom. I pushed food around my plate and said nothing. Let them fill the silence with small talk about the church bake sale and the new grocery store opening and whether the high school football team would make the playoffs this year. Then Richard turned to me. How are things at Anderson and Partners, Kyle? I heard they're expanding. Good. We're taking on some new clients, thinking about adding another associate next year. That's wonderful. You've always been such a hard worker. Jasmine, your husband's going places. That's when she snapped. Really, Dad? Going places? He's been in the same position for 6 years. He's never going to be anything more than a senior accountant. He's too afraid to take risks, too boring to ever really succeed. The table went quiet. Ellen's fork froze halfway to her mouth. Jasmine, Richard said, his voice holding a warning. But she wasn't done. She turned to me, her eyes blazing with something I couldn't quite identify. Anger, guilt, self-hatred projected outward. He's a complete failure in everything, in bed and at work. I didn't go home that night. I drove to the extended stay hotel on Route 9 and booked a room for a week. The woman at the front desk barely looked at me. Business or pleasure? Neither, I said. Just need a place to think. The room was exactly what I expected. Beige walls, industrial carpet, a bed that was too soft, a TV bolted to the wall. It was perfect. I sat on the bed and pulled out my phone. 17 missed calls, 23 text messages, all from Jasmine. Where are you? Get back here right now. You're being ridiculous. We need to talk about your behavior. Kyle, answer your phone. I can't believe you just left like that. You embarrassed me in front of my family. That last one almost made me laugh. I embarrassed her, not the other way around. I turned off my phone and lay back on the too soft bed, staring at the popcorn ceiling. Here's what I knew. My marriage was over. That was certain. Jasmine was having an affair with Hubert Langley. That was confirmed. She'd tried to humiliate me publicly, maybe to justify her own behavior, maybe just because she'd stopped seeing me as a person worth respecting. The whole town either knew or suspected what was happening, so the question wasn't whether to end it. The question was how. I could file for divorce quietly, split our minimal assets, move on with my life. That was the mature, reasonable option. Or I could make sure everyone knew exactly who Jasmine really was. Make sure her affair wasn't just whispered about, but confirmed, documented, undeniable. Make sure Hubert's already shaky reputation became completely unsalvageable. I'm not a vengeful person by nature. I don't take pleasure in other people's suffering. But that night, lying in that hotel room, I felt something cold and hard crystallize in my chest. They'd made a fool of me. Jasmine had publicly destroyed what was left of my dignity. Hubert had come into my town, my community, and helped destroy my marriage without a second thought. The mature thing would be to let it go, to be the bigger person. But I'd been the bigger person for 3 months. I'd swallowed my suspicions, my hurt, my anger. I'd tried to hold our marriage together, even as Jasmine actively worked to tear it apart. I was done being the bigger person. Monday morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. Then I started making phone calls. First call, Dave Morrison, Jasmine's boss. Dave, it's Kyle Bristol. I need to talk to you about something sensitive. Can we meet? We met at a diner on the edge of town, away from the usual Millbrook lunch crowd. Dave was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth with coffee and a worried expression. "What's this about, Kyle?" he asked as I slid into the booth. I didn't waste time. "It's about Jasmine and Hubert Langley." His face told me everything I needed to know. He already suspected. "Kyle, I don't want to get involved in... She's been lying about working late, lying about client meetings, lying about projects that don't exist. I saw them together at Murphy's Pub in August. I just thought you should know that she's using company time and company resources to conduct an affair." Dave's jaw tightened. He took a long sip of his coffee. "Can you prove it?" "I saw them at Murphy's Pub 3 weeks ago. Tuesday afternoon, around 1 o'clock. They weren't discussing business. Jimmy the bartender saw them too. He'll confirm it if you ask him." Dave set down his coffee cup with a heavy thunk. "This puts me in a difficult position. Jasmine's been with Morrison and Dale for 4 years. I'm not asking you to fire her. I'm asking you to pay attention, to verify her hours, to confirm she's actually meeting with the clients she claims to be meeting with." He studied me for a long moment. "You've changed. People do, especially when their wife humiliates them publicly. I heard about the dinner. Richard called me yesterday. He's on our church board. He was mortified. Thanks for meeting with me, Dave. Kyle, for what it's worth, I'm sorry. You didn't deserve what she did." Second call, Margaret Henshaw, who ran the Millbrook Chamber of Commerce and was the town's most efficient gossip network. "Margaret, I need some advice about something personal." We met at her office. Margaret sat behind her desk like a general commanding troops. "Kyle Bristol," she said. "I heard about what happened at the Walker family dinner." Of course she had. "That's actually what I wanted to talk to you about." I told her a carefully edited version, that Jasmine was having an affair with Hubert Langley, that I was devastated, that I didn't know what to do. I made myself sound vulnerable, confused, hurt. Margaret's eyes gleamed with sympathy and something else. Information. Currency. "Oh, Kyle, I'm so sorry. What an awful situation. And with Hubert Langley of all people. Charming fellow, but too charming if you ask me." "What can I do to help, dear?" "Nothing. I just needed someone to talk to, someone who'd understand. Please don't tell anyone." She reached across the desk and patted my hand. "Of course not, dear. This stays between us." She would tell everyone. That was the point. But she'd tell them in a way that made me the sympathetic victim and Jasmine the villain. By Wednesday, the whispers had started. I could feel them everywhere I went. The pitying looks at the grocery store, the awkward silences when I walked into Anderson and Partners, the carefully casual questions from old friends. "How are things at home, Kyle? Everything okay with you and Jasmine? If you ever need to talk." Millbrook's gossip machine was a beautiful thing when you knew how to work it. On Thursday afternoon, I ran into Bill Patterson, the lawyer from Rotary Club, at the coffee shop. "Kyle, good to see you. How are you holding up?" The phrasing told me he'd heard. "I'm managing." "Listen, if you need legal advice about anything, and I mean anything, my door's always open. First consultation is free for friends." "I appreciate that, Bill. I mean it. Divorce can get messy, especially in a small town. You want someone who knows how to protect your interests." "I'll keep that in mind." He handed me his business card. "Sooner is better than later, Kyle. Don't wait until things get uglier." Third, I reached out to 3 of Hubert's current clients through mutual connections. I had lunch with Steve Harrison, owner of Harrison Manufacturing, the client Hubert had lost. "I heard you were looking at consultants," I said casually. "Thought about Langley?" Steve's face darkened. "Used him briefly. Biggest mistake I ever made. Guy inflated his credentials. Claimed he had experience with manufacturing. Turned out he'd only worked with 2 small retailers. When I called him on it, he got defensive." "Did he deliver any value?" "Not a bit. Charged me $5,000 for generic advice you could find in any business textbook." "Good to know." "Kyle, let me give you some free advice. Hubert Langley is all flash and no substance. Stay away from him." By Friday, I'd built a comprehensive picture of Hubert Langley. Divorced, struggling financially, professionally questionable, personally unethical. The kind of man my wife had chosen over me. Jasmine found me at the hotel on Friday evening. I don't know how she got the room number. Maybe she called every hotel in a 20-mile radius. It didn't matter. I heard the knock on the door at 7:30. I was sitting on the bed with my laptop, going through our financial records. "Kyle, I know you're in there. Open the door." I considered not answering, but we were going to have this conversation eventually. I opened the door. Jasmine looked terrible. Her hair was unwashed, pulled back in a messy ponytail. No makeup, red eyes. She was wearing yoga pants and an oversized sweatshirt. "Can I come in?" she asked. I stepped aside. She walked into the room and looked around. "This is where you've been staying?" "Yes." "Kyle, this is ridiculous. Come home. We need to talk about what happened." "What's there to talk about?" "You embarrassed me. You just walked out." I stared at her. "I embarrassed you?" "Yes." "Jasmine, you told your entire family I was a failure in bed, in front of me, and you think I embarrassed you?" She had the grace to look ashamed. "I was upset. I didn't mean it." "Yes, you did. You've been wanting to say it for months." "That's not—" "How long have you been sleeping with Hubert Langley?" The color drained from her face. "What?" "Don't insult me by pretending you don't know what I'm talking about. I saw you at Murphy's pub in August. I heard you on the phone with him in July. I know about the late nights and the fake client meetings and all of it. So let's skip the part where you deny it." She sat down heavily on the edge of the bed, her hands shaking. "How long have you known?" "Long enough." "Why didn't you say anything?" "I was waiting to see if you'd tell me yourself, if you'd show even a shred of respect for our marriage." I leaned against the wall. "You never did. It's not what you think." "Then what is it?" She looked at me, and for a moment I saw something genuine. Fear, maybe, or the realization that she'd lost control. "Hubert and I, it started as just talking, at a networking event in May. He was funny and charming and paid attention to me. We started having coffee, then lunch. It just evolved. Into an affair." "Yes." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Into an affair. Do you love him?" "I don't know. Maybe. It's complicated." "It's not complicated, Jasmine. Either you love him or you don't. Either you want to be married to me or you don't." "I was unhappy, Kyle. You're always working. You never want to do anything interesting. We just fell into this routine, and I felt like I was suffocating. So instead of talking to me about it, instead of suggesting counseling or trying to fix things, you decided to have an affair. I made a mistake. You made 1,000 mistakes. This is just the biggest one. She started crying. Real tears. I don't want to lose you. I don't want to get divorced. We can fix this. I'll end things with Hubert right now. I'll do whatever it takes. It's too late. It's not. Kyle, please. I love you. I made a mistake, but I love you. No, you don't. You might have loved me once, but you don't anymore. If you loved me, you wouldn't have humiliated me in front of your family. You wouldn't have lied to me for months. I chose wrong. I see that now. I walked to the window, looking out at the parking lot. Here's what's going to happen. I'm filing for divorce next week. I've already talked to a lawyer. We'll split everything 50-50. You can have the house. I don't want it. Kyle, I'm not finished. You're going to tell your family the truth about why we're getting divorced. All of it. No spinning it to make yourself look better. I can't. Yes, you can. And you will. Because if you don't, I'll tell them myself. And I'll tell Dave Morrison. And I'll tell everyone else who asks. She stood up, anger replacing the tears. That's cruel. Is it? You had no problem destroying my reputation at your parents' dinner. Why should I protect yours? Because you're better than this. I was better than this. You made sure that changed. She grabbed her purse from the floor. I can't believe I ever loved you. The feeling's mutual. She stormed toward the door, then stopped with her hand on the handle. You know what your problem is, Kyle? You're boring. You're safe and predictable and boring. Hubert makes me feel alive. Hubert is a con artist with a failing business, but sure, he makes you feel special. I hope that's enough when you're 40 and alone. She slammed the door hard enough to rattle the frame. I stood there for a long moment, then sat back down on the bed. My hands were shaking, my heart was pounding, but underneath the adrenaline, I felt something else. Relief. By the following Monday, Dave Morrison had confronted Jasmine about her work hours. I heard about it through the grapevine. Josie called me, having heard it from her cousin who worked at Morrison and Dale. Dave pulled Jasmine into his office this morning, Josie said. Apparently he'd been tracking her hours for the past week. Wanted to know why she was billing for client meetings that never happened. What did she say? She tried to explain them away. Said the clients had canceled at the last minute, or the meetings had moved to phone calls, but Dave wasn't buying it. He put her on notice. One more incident and she's fired. Good. Kyle, are you sure you want to do this? I mean, she's going to lose her job. She's going to lose her job because she's not doing her job, Josie. That's not on me. The whispers intensified as the week went on. I heard them everywhere. At the grocery store, at the bank, at Murphy's pub where I started eating lunch again. Did you hear about Jasmine Bristol? Cheated on Kyle with that Langley guy. What an idiot. Kyle's one of the good ones. The town had turned against her. Not because I'd asked them to, but because Millbrook was a small town with traditional values, and adultery was still seen as a moral failing. Hubert's reputation took a hit too. 2 more clients dropped him that week. The Rotary Club asked him not to attend the next meeting. Just until things settled down, they said. But everyone knew it was permanent. His business was circling the drain, and everyone in town was happy to watch it sink. I felt nothing about any of it. No satisfaction, no vindication, just a hollow space where my marriage used to be. Bill Patterson's office was on the 2nd floor of a brick building on Walnut Street, above a yoga studio and a used bookstore. Kyle, Bill said, shaking my hand firmly. Come on back. His office was exactly what you'd expect. Wood paneling, leather chairs, diplomas on the wall, family photos on the desk. So, he said, settling into his chair, you want to file for divorce? Yes. On what grounds? Pennsylvania was a no-fault divorce state. Irretrievable breakdown of the marriage. Okay, tell me about your assets. Do you own property together? A house. We bought it 3 years ago. Still have about $160,000 left on the mortgage. It's probably worth about $250 now. Bill made notes. Cars? 2. My Ford Focus, her Honda Accord. Both paid off. Retirement accounts, savings. I've got a 401k through work, about $40,000 in it. We have a joint savings account with about $30,000. Joint checking with maybe $5,000. Debts besides the mortgage. Credit cards. About $15,000, mostly from her spending. Bill kept writing. Children? No. That simplifies things. Any prenuptial agreement? No. Okay. Pennsylvania is an equitable distribution state, which means assets get divided fairly but not necessarily equally. Given that you've been married less than 5 years, have no children, and have roughly equal earning potential, we're probably looking at a pretty straightforward 50-50 split. That's fine. I don't want to fight about money. Bill looked up from his notes. What do you want, Kyle? I want out. Clean. Fast. I want to move on with my life. Fair enough. I'll draw up the paperwork. You'll need to decide who gets the house. One of you can buy the other out, or you can sell it and split the proceeds. She can have the house. I don't want it. You sure? That's a significant asset. I'm sure. I don't want any reminders. Bill studied me for a moment. Okay. I'll include that in the settlement proposal. Anything else? I hesitated. I wanted on record why the marriage ended. I want it documented that she had an affair. Kyle, this is a no-fault state. Her infidelity doesn't legally matter. I know, but I want it documented anyway, for my own records. Bill nodded slowly. I can include an affidavit if you want. Statement of facts regarding the breakdown of the marriage. It won't affect the settlement, but it'll be part of the court record. Good. Can you prove the affair? I saw them together. I have dates and times. I have a witness, Jimmy the bartender at Murphy's Pub. I have documentation of her lying about work meetings. That should be sufficient. Bill closed his legal pad. I'll have the paperwork ready by the end of the week. Filing fee is around $300. My fee for an uncontested divorce is $1,500. If she contests it, that number goes up. She won't contest it. How do you know? Because she knows I have proof, and she knows if this goes to court, everyone will know exactly what she did. Bill leaned back in his chair. Kyle, can I give you some advice? Not as your lawyer, but as someone who's been through this twice? Sure. Don't let revenge consume you. I get it. You're hurt. You're angry. You want her to pay. But that road doesn't lead anywhere good. File the divorce. Split the assets. Move on. Don't waste years of your life trying to punish her. I'm not trying to punish her. I'm just making sure the truth comes out. Same thing, from a certain angle. Maybe he was right. Maybe I was being vindictive, but I didn't care anymore. 2 weeks after I'd confronted Jasmine at the hotel, I got a call from Monica. Kyle, it's Monica. Can we talk? Sure, what's up? It's about Jasmine. She's not doing well. That's not my problem anymore. I know, and I'm not asking you to get back together with her or anything like that. But Kyle, she's falling apart. She's barely eating. She's not sleeping. She stays up all night crying. Monica, I know she screwed up. Trust me, I know. I told her she was an idiot for cheating on you. But she's still my sister, and I'm worried about her. I sighed, pinching the bridge of my nose. What do you want me to do? Just maybe go easy on her? Mom told me you're making sure everyone in town knows about the affair, that you've been talking to her boss. I haven't spread any stories. I told Dave Morrison the truth because she was stealing from her company by billing for work she wasn't doing. Everything else? That's just how small towns work. People talk. She lost a client today, someone who specifically said they didn't want to work with her because of moral concerns. Again, not my problem. She made her choices. Monica was quiet for a moment. You've changed, Kyle. You used to be kind. I used to be a lot of things. Then my wife had an affair and humiliated me in front of her family. Funny how that changes a person. I get it. I really do. But at some point, you have to ask yourself if this is who you want to be. She destroyed her own life, Monica. I'm just making sure she doesn't get to lie about it. I hung up, feeling unsettled. Was Monica right? Was I taking this too far? But then I remembered Jasmine's face at that dinner table, the venom in her voice when she called me a failure. I remembered the months of lies, the fake work meetings, the smell of another man's cologne on her clothes. No, I wasn't taking it too far. I was just making sure she faced the consequences of her actions. October arrived with cool winds and falling leaves. The divorce paperwork was filed. Jasmine had 30 days to respond. She didn't contest it. Bill called me on a Tuesday afternoon. She signed everything, agreed to all the terms. Her lawyer said she just wants it over with. When will it be final? 90 days from filing, so early January. But for all practical purposes, it's done. You can start moving forward. I found an apartment on the north side of town. 2 bedrooms, hardwood floors, a kitchen big enough for one person. The landlord was understanding when I explained my situation. Divorce is never easy, she said, handing me the keys. But sometimes it's necessary. You'll land on your feet, young man. I moved in on October 15th. It took less than 3 hours. I didn't have much, mostly clothes, some books, my laptop, a few kitchen items I'd picked up at Target. Everything else stayed in the house with Jasmine. Starting fresh felt good, felt right. Work was going well. Anderson and Partners promoted me to senior tax consultant in early October, partly because I deserved it and partly because Gerald felt I'd earned it. You've been working your tail off, he said, when he called me into his office. And you've been handling all this personal stuff with grace. That's worth recognizing. The promotion came with a raise, $10,000 a year, and a corner office with an actual window. People at work stopped giving me pitying looks and started treating me with something like respect. I was the guy who'd survived betrayal and come out stronger. It was October 18th when Monica called again. Kyle, I need to tell you something. I'm listening. It's about Jasmine. She's been sick for the past few days. Throwing up, feeling nauseous. Mom insisted she take a pregnancy test. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? She's pregnant, Kyle. The test was positive. I sat down on my couch, suddenly dizzy. It's not mine. I know, she knows too. You guys haven't... she said you haven't been intimate since July. July. 4 months ago. If Jasmine was pregnant now, it was definitely not my child. It's Hubert's, I said flatly. Yeah, it's Hubert's. Does he know? She told him this morning. He said... Monica's voice caught. He said he can't do this. That it was just supposed to be fun. He offered to pay for an abortion. Despite everything, despite all my anger and hurt and carefully cultivated detachment, I felt something twist in my chest. Not sympathy for Jasmine. She'd made her bed. But something else. Maybe pity. Maybe just the recognition of how completely she'd destroyed her own life. What's she going to do? I don't know. She's at my apartment right now, just sitting on the couch staring at the wall. She's completely broken, Kyle. Why are you telling me this? I don't know. I guess I thought you should know. Monica, I'm sorry she's going through this. I really am. But it's not my problem. She made her choices. Hubert made his. Now they both get to live with the consequences. She has no one, Kyle. Mom and Dad won't talk to her. She's probably going to lose her job. Hubert wants nothing to do with her. She has you. That's not enough. It'll have to be. I hung up and sat there for a long time, processing the information. Jasmine was pregnant, with Hubert's child. Hubert, who wanted nothing to do with either of them. Hubert, whose business was failing, whose reputation was ruined. The irony was almost poetic. She'd destroyed our marriage for an affair that had now destroyed her life. I should have felt satisfaction, vindication, the universe delivering cosmic justice. Instead, I just felt tired. According to Monica, who called me with updates I didn't ask for, Jasmine told her parents about the pregnancy 2 days after the positive test. Richard had erupted. You've disgraced this family. How could you do this? How could you throw away your marriage, your career, your reputation? For what? Ellen had cried. What are we going to tell people at church? Always worried about appearances. Jasmine had left their house in tears and hadn't spoken to either parent since. Dave Morrison fired her the following week. Violation of company policy regarding billable hours, the termination letter said, though everyone knew the real reason. Jasmine was unemployed, pregnant, and effectively disowned by her family. She moved in with Monica, who had a spare bedroom in her apartment. I can't just abandon her, Monica told me over coffee. She's my sister, even if she's an idiot. You're a better person than me. No, I'm just stuck with family loyalty. Hubert, meanwhile, had closed his business. Langley Consulting Group was officially dissolved in early November. He'd put his house on the market and was reportedly moving to Philadelphia. He was cutting his losses and running. I ran into him once in late October at the gas station on the edge of town. He was filling up his BMW, looking tired and older than his 41 years. He saw me and froze. Kyle, he said. Hubert. Look, I didn't know she was married when we met. She didn't tell me until we'd already... He stopped, realizing that made it worse. She was wearing a wedding ring, I said quietly. You knew? Yeah, I did. He rubbed his face. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. I never meant to... You never meant to what? Destroy a marriage? Ruin lives? Get a married woman pregnant and then abandon her? I'm not abandoning her. I offered to help. You offered to pay for an abortion. That's not helping. That's making your problem go away. He didn't have an answer for that. Get out of town, Hubert. There's nothing left for you here. I'm leaving next week. Good. I finished filling my tank, paid, and left without looking back. The divorce was finalized on January 5th, 2026. I didn't attend the hearing. Bill represented me. Jasmine didn't attend either, sending her lawyer from Lancaster. The judge signed the papers. Our marriage was officially over. I felt nothing. No sadness, no relief, just emptiness. But that emptiness slowly filled with other things. Better things. Work consumed most of my time. I threw myself into tax season, took on new clients, started building a reputation as the go-to guy for complex business accounting. I joined a gym, started running 3 times a week, lost the 15 pounds I'd put on during my marriage. I reconnected with old friends I'd neglected, started playing poker on Thursday nights with guys from high school, went fishing with Gerald on weekends. Slowly, without really noticing it happening, I built a new life. Jasmine had her baby in April. Monica sent me a text with a picture. A girl, 7 pounds, 4 ounces. They'd named her Emma. I looked at the picture once, then deleted it. That was Jasmine's life now, not mine. I heard through the grapevine that Jasmine was working part-time at the grocery store on Main Street. It was a come-down from her advertising job, but it paid the bills. Barely. She was living with Monica still, raising Emma alone. Hubert had indeed left town, moved to Philadelphia. He sent child support payments, but that was the extent of his involvement. The town had slowly stopped talking about the scandal. There were newer, fresher scandals to discuss. Jasmine became just another cautionary tale. Remember Jasmine Bristol? Cheated on her husband with that consultant guy? Yeah, she's working at ShopRite now. Such a shame. I saw her once, in February 2027, at that same grocery store where she worked. I'd stopped in to grab milk and bread. She was at the checkout counter, scanning items, looking older than her 34 years. The baby was in a carrier on her back, sleeping peacefully. She saw me. Our eyes met across the store. She opened her mouth like she wanted to say something. I looked away and kept walking to a different register. There was nothing left to say, no apologies that would matter, no explanations that would change anything. She'd made her choices, she'd live with them. I paid for my groceries at Register 3, where a teenager with braces scanned my items without looking up. As I left, I glanced back once. Jasmine was watching me, tears running down her face, one hand resting protectively on the baby carrier. I walked out into the cold February afternoon and got in my car. That was the last time I saw Jasmine Bristol. I drove home to my apartment, put away the groceries, and made myself dinner. Just pasta with marinara sauce, nothing fancy. I ate at my small kitchen table, looking out the window at the street below where normal people were living normal lives. People sometimes ask me if I regret how I handled it, if I regret not taking the high road, not being the bigger person, not forgiving and moving on quietly. I don't. Jasmine destroyed herself. I just made sure everyone saw it happening. That's not revenge. That's just truth. Some people deserve their consequences. Jasmine got exactly what she earned. A shattered reputation, a failed affair, a child whose father wanted nothing to do with either of them, and a town that would never let her forget her mistakes. Me? I got my life back, my self-respect, my future. That Sunday dinner where she called me a failure in front of her family feels like it happened to a different person. That Kyle, the one who smiled and said, "I won't argue with that," was the last gasp of a man who didn't know his own worth. This Kyle knows better. This Kyle doesn't accept humiliation. This Kyle walks away from toxicity and never looks back. I don't know if that makes me better or worse than I was before, but I know I sleep well at night. I know I look at myself in the mirror and recognize and respect the man looking back. The woman who tried to destroy me ended up destroying herself instead, and I'm okay with that. I'm more than okay. I'm free.